G'day, welcome to another exciting new episode of Fountain Pen Makers in the Wild. A couple of weeks ago I spent some time at the DC Pen Super Show with my mate Eric, who's another experienced fountain pen hunter and a trekker of good deals. We spent some time at the table of the Edison Pen Company, which is headed by a guy named Brian Gray. He looks something like this. Now, we try to gain his trust. That's not easy because these guys come to the show to sell pens, and if you come between them and their pen sales, they may just bite your finger off. Now, we did actually gain his trust, and when he went home with his wife, Eric was able to follow him. So what I just said there was that Eric was able to follow him. I was not saying that Brian's grey wife is called Eric, right? Okay, now Eric followed him home with a video camera, and he was actually able to shoot some video footage of the guy, Brian Gray, in his natural habitat making some pens. Now what you got to realise here is how unique that material is, because video footage of a pen maker making pens actually hardly ever leaves a pen maker's workshop. So Eric risked his life because, you know, with these pen makers, if their lathe breaks, you have no idea what they are capable of. So Eric risked his life, but he was able to get you that footage. And that footage is what you are going to watch right now.
Hey everybody, this is Brian Gray with the Edison Pen Company. Eric and the other fountain pen geeks were kind enough to ask me if I would do a little narration to this video that you're watching right now, and I'm more than happy to do so. I think you can see that quite obviously I'm making a pen, no big surprise there, but this is a little bit special because I'm doing a demonstrator. I don't do too many of these. They are labor intensive because, if you can imagine, polishing the inside of a machined pen is just as difficult as polishing the outside, but it's not easy to get in there and get everything cleaned out. So Eric visited the shop after the DC Pen Show, and I forget exactly how we got started onto this, but I think that we made a barrel out of clear material, or we started something in a clear material, and I don't remember exactly why. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, let's just make a demonstrator. So we got that idea in our head and we started doing it. The only unfortunate thing about this video is because we didn't really plan it well, you aren't seeing the entire pen making process. What you missed are first operations, and basically what that means is when I go in and do the initial interior of the pen. So drilling, initial boring, and threading on the interior, you're not going to see. Now you will see the interior cleanup, but you won't see the first step. So what you can tell right now that I have this pen part mounted on a mandrel. This is a barrel, and I'm turning it to the final diameter. So you can see there's a blind cap is attached, and what I'm doing is finding the precise exact diameter that I want it to be, and right now I'm doing my final pass. You'll notice that I'm doing this a lot slower, a lot more precision, a lot more care, because this is the final pass, at least on a good part of the exterior, and then I will take a file such as this and do the final shaping of this. You will notice that if people that are experienced machinists might look at this and go, my gosh, he's crazy because he's reaching over the lathe chuck. Please don't send me emails and tell me how unsafe this is. Not to sound, what's the word that I want? Not to sound flippant, but I've been doing this for 15, 16 years safely, and every so often I get a comment like, oh my gosh, you're going to rip your arm off by reaching over the chuck. But I'm aware of the risk. I've been doing it safely for a long time. So now we're at a point where, now when you're making a demonstrator pen, or when you're making a regular pen, we'll just use a drill on the interior, and the drill will leave the interior rough. Now that's not a big deal on most pen materials, and even some translucent pen materials, because you just don't see that roughness through the grain, through the pattern, through whatever the pen material is, if it's translucent at all. And many times you won't see it even if it is a little translucent. If it's not translucent a bit, then of course we're not concerned about the inside. But right now what I'm doing is I'm taking a boring bar, a very long boring bar, and because this material is totally clear, I've got to clean up all of the tool marks that the drill left, and that's what you're seeing. You can see, the camera is mounted on my cross slide, so you can see that the camera is moving with the tool, and you can see how slowly that tool is moving. It's a very, very slow, I think it's like 0.003 inches per rev. So in other words, 3/1000ths of an inch per revolution of the spindle. So it's a very, very slow process. You know, if I went too fast with this, then it wouldn't leave a nice clear edge. You see I'm squirting some water in there, or I did a little bit ago. I use water as a lubricant. If there wasn't any type of lubricant or even a little bit of coolant or something in there to keep things as cool as possible, and also, more importantly, it's just to act as a lubricant to clean up the cut. It also works to kind of flush out the pieces. If you look closely, you can see those little pieces are kind of like floating in the water and flying out. If I didn't have those going on, then I'd build up a lot of heat, I'd build up a lot of issues, and I would have a lot of issues, and the chips wouldn't clear out of there, or also called swarf. The swarf wouldn't clear out of there, and so that's why I'm doing this. But now even this won't necessarily leave a perfect edge. Or I should say a perfect interior. There's still a little bit of work to do after this, which you'll see in a little bit. But for now, this step is all about clearing out the interior and getting rid of those machine marks. Now we're doing the same thing, but this is the cap. So a little bit of water in there, got that long boring bar, get myself set up for the exact diameter that I need. And then a very, very slow feed to get rid of the interior machine marks and make the interior smoother, or at least better looking. Maybe I'll have a quick discussion about injection molding versus machining. If this were an injection molded pen, it wouldn't be any issue, because when it comes off the machine, it's already perfect. You know, it's clear. You know, there wasn't any machining because it was basically, I don't know if cast is the word, but because it was cast in an injection molder, it just comes out nice. No work to do. But obviously, I don't do injection molding, so I have to take care of clear interiors a very different way, which is what you're seeing here now, of course. So now there is a cap that has the interior pretty much cleared out to where it's looking really good. But especially with a completely clear material like a demonstrator, there's still some more work to do. So here you see I'm mounting sandpaper onto a homemade tool that is holding that sandpaper. They don't exactly make tools that I can use to do this, so these tools are actually homemade. So just a little piece of sandpaper on a smaller lathe, start it up, and then I've got some water in there as a lubricant, and start cleaning out and just some interior sanding to get that material as clear as possible. I go through various grits. That was the barrel. Now this is the cap. And now it's time to use, I have this homemade buffing bob that will do interior buffing. So once you get all that sanding done inside there, it's still not as clear as what it could be, even if you went to a really high grit. So I use this homemade buffing bob to get in there with a little compound and start doing the final polishing, which is what you're seeing. That was the barrel, and now this is the cap. And then we're going to sand the exterior of the pen. We didn't do much of that. A lot of times I'll sand the exterior first, but I forget exactly why, but we ended up sanding the exterior afterwards. And now buffing the exterior. So we got the inside nice and polished, getting the outside nice and polished, and we're almost done with this pen. There is the pen in an exploded view, and then there's some finished photos coming up here. I'd like to say thanks to the Fountain Pen Geeks. They do some great things for this pen community. Thanks for asking me to do this. Thanks for doing the recording. So that's the Edison Beaumont Demonstrator. Thank you. Ooh. Mm-hmm.